Hey guys, I hope you're well. Um, I hope you prefer the lighting today. It's hurting my eyes, but I tried to do something slightly different. I still look like a mess, but anyway. Haircut, quarantine, tried to do my own. Couldn't cut the back, so I look hideous. But anyway, today I'm just gonna do a quick rundown of the or I hope it will be quick rundown of the exam paper for OCR A level classical civilization for uh, paper one, which is the world of the hero. This is essentially the book paper, as in you study two texts, one by Homer, which is either the Iliad or the Odyssey, the or the sequel, the Odyssey, the Iliad. This you can tell that I used it for GCSE and A level because of all the post-it notes and like how ruined it is. This was actually given to me by a friend, a very awesome friend. Shout out to you, you're awesome. So you study one of those, and you also study a text by Virgil, the Aeneid. Um, this paper is slightly different from the other two papers that you do because whilst it is slightly different in like timings etc, which I'll explain, it's different as in it is compulsory. Like, so you don't have a choice of papers like the other two. It is compulsory, but there are different sections in there which are kind of which you kind of pick and choose, because that is because whilst everyone who sits classical civilizations has to study the Aeneid, you get a choice of whether to study the Odyssey or the Iliad. So I'll get right into oh, and very quickly, for the free texts that you study, but you only study two, although you read the whole epics, because these are epics, um, there are key books, because books are essentially chapters, which are the essentially the important ones, the ones that you'll be assessed on, the ones that you'll get an extra question on, and the ones you need to know more. The other books you will need to know, but not in so much depth. For the Iliad, I'm gonna link them. I'm gonna write them down in the description, so don't worry. If you can't hear, but for the Iliad, it's the essential ones are books 1, 3, 4, 6, 9, 10, 16, 17, 18, 19, 22, 23, and 24. So 13 in total. For the Odyssey, it is books 1, 5 to 13, 16 to 19, and 21 to 23. So slightly more, 18 in total. And for the Aeneid, it is books 1 to 2, 4, and 6 to 12. And so 10 in total. And I know that is much less than the other two, but this is because this only has 12 books inside, but they are the same length, but the chapters are double the length because there are less of them. But anyway, I'll get straight into the paper. So the paper is 100 marks, more than the other two, which are 75 marks each, and it is worth 40% of your whole A level, which is more than the other two, which are 30%. And again, it is more than the other two in timings, because whilst the other ones are an hour and 45 minutes, the other papers, I mean, this paper is 2 hours and 20 minutes. And if you have extra time, this is 2 hours and 55 minutes for 25% extra time, and 3 hours and 30 minutes for 50% extra time. I think. Um, I think. Um, and essentially, there are three sections of this. Section 1 is Homer, Section 2 is Virgil, and Section 3 is both. So, section Section A and Section B are essentially the same, but Section A also has Section A has two parts, and you only study one because there's one set of questions for the Odyssey and one set of questions for the Iliad. But the Iliad, I think, usually goes first. So the first question you get it is an extra question. Usually there will be two extracts, and that is because there are two translations. Your teacher will tell you which translation you use, but you can essentially pick either extract. Like if you look at one extract, because they'll be the same extract but slightly different translation, and you can pick which one you want to analyze. And for this, they'll have a question saying, for example, How does Homer make this an exciting piece of imagery? Or how does Virgil portray Aeneas as brave or something like that? So they'll essentially have to unpick it. And there are five. It is there are this question is 10 marks, and it's you should be spending about 50 minutes on it, and you get 5 marks for AO1. So this is choosing the evidence from the extract, like choosing the quotes, etc. And then 5 marks for AO2, which is interpreting, evaluating it, like justifying it, explaining it, etc. Then you have a 20-mark question, like right underneath, and this is usually linked to the extract. They usually say you can use this extract as a starting point, and this would be on a theme or character pretty much, or sometimes a bit more complicated, and sometimes a mixture of both. Like for example, I have an example here. Aeneas behaves in an unheroic way throughout the second half of the Aeneid. To what extent do you agree with the statement? You may use this passage as a starting point. Um, Usually, it won't ask you for on the whole book, on the whole epic. It will ask you either for a half or a certain amount of books. For the Aeneid, they might ask you on just one book, but I think that's unlikely. But like, keep that in mind, and you have to use evidence from the extract, but also from your knowledge and throughout the books that they're asking you to pick from. And for this question, it is 20 marks, so you should be spending about 25 minutes on it. And it is 20 marks, and it is 20 marks, and 10 marks go for AO1, so like choosing the evidence, not just from the extract, but also from your own knowledge. And AO2 for like explaining it, interpreting it, um, evaluating it, etc., etc. So, and this is the so this and this happens 3 times, one for each epic. But you only pick. Well, you have to do the Aeneid. Every single student who does classical civilization, that is the only question that every single student is going to answer. And then you have to do either the ones for the Odyssey um or the Iliad. Then there is section C, which is slightly more complicated, but not really. Um, First, you'll get another 10-mark question, and these will ask you to compare the two extra questions which you have done. So this will either be the Aeneid extra question with the Iliad or the Aeneid extra question with the Odyssey. And this will be 10 marks, so you should be spending about 15 minutes on it, and you just have to compare different evidence. They won't just say compare these, they'll say, for example, which passage is more engaging for an audience, and you have to, and I think it is the same, so 5 marks for like the information that you use, like the quotes, etc., and then 5 marks for the analysis and the interpretation and evaluation, etc. And then you have one 30-mark. So you actually have three 30-mark questions. One will be on the Iliad, one will be on the Odyssey, and one will be on the Aeneid. And they will all um they will all be 30 marks, so you should be spending about 45 minutes on it. Um, and none of them will ask you to compare, so don't worry. Like, I thought they were going to ask to compare, but no. But they'll be free. So, for example, the Iliad one may be the actions of Homer's character tell us more about them than their words. Evaluate whether you think this is a true, uh, um, whether or not you think this is true of characterization Iliad. In the Odyssey, Penelope is the only character depicted as being without fault or flaw. To what extent do you think this is true of the way women are portrayed in the Odyssey? To what extent do you consider praising Augustus to be the sole purpose of the Aeneid? Justify your response. So, like, questions like that, and there'll be one for the Odyssey, one for the Iliad, and one for the Aeneid. So you get kind of a choice of two, but they will be on different texts. Um, and since this is Fatima questions, this is when you bring in your modern scholarship, and like your critics quotes, because for this question it's slightly different because there's 10 marks for AO1, so the evidence, which you can use from the extracts, but it's more important to use them from your own knowledge and from the text themselves. You don't necessarily need to quote, but just cross-reference. So if you can quote like a bit, then that's good. But then there's 20 marks for AO2. So the interpretation is more important. Um, because and that's why you're going to have to need critics for it. You don't need like 10 or anything. Usually you need about 2 to 4, maybe one more, two more if you want to. But the more important thing is interpreting it afterwards. And yeah, that's great. I hope like this made sense, and I hope I didn't get confused between the I hope I didn't get confused between the two. I mean, between the three texts. With this textbook, which I highly recommend, which you'll probably use in class, at the back there is a what to expect in the AS exam, but then there's also, so you don't need that, but there is also what to expect in the A-level exam, and this will tell you the questions, it'll give you examples of questions, but it will also tell you about the AOs, and also tell you about like how to answer them and how to pick evidence, etc. So I highly recommend that. Look out for more classics and also English literature and Spanish and languages and just general revision videos coming soon, because I've been a bit lousy with this channel, but my mental health has been really struggling, so yay. So hopefully this will be good, but so hopefully this will be helpful, but yeah, bye guys.